contributor Jenny Horn to the show. Good morning to you, Jenny. Happy Friday. We have a fun conversation here, talking some golf. Big sport over the last year. A lot of people taking up the game as it was able to kind of effectively be played with social distancing and everything in a safe way. And one of the ways to kind of express optimism on this space is through a name like Callaway Golf Company, which is actually public, stock ticker ELY.
Yes, I mean, it has truly been a season like no other for golf. One of the reasons being, like you just mentioned, it's a perfect socially distant activity. But I also think that this was sort of people's ways to get out of their house because we were so limited on our options, in terms of activities. So golf is I feel like has this resurgence where now we're seeing this huge spike in an interest in golf. I had more friends watching the Masters this year than I've ever known. And I grew up with my dad being an avid golfer, and he actually just told me that the country club he belongs to is actually at capacity in terms of its golf membership. So that is wild to me that right now golf is the strongest it's sort of ever been. And just to paint a picture of that surge in golf, we're seeing a 20% spike actually in the amount of rounds played. And the biggest group of people actually attributing to this is junior golfers, so ages 6 to 17. They've seen a 20% spike over the last year. So that has positively affected a name, of course, like Callaway. The stock is up about 1.5% today, but it surged about 7% yesterday. And it has earnings to Monday after market close. So Callaway has been a huge, of course, beneficiary of this surge in golf. And actually its earnings are reflective of that. It's expecting earnings to grow about 65% year over year on revenue that's expected to climb about 29%. And of course, being a company that offers golf products and golf tools, it has boosted its investor sentiment sort of around this name with the resurgence in the interest of golf. Now, the strongest tool for growth, many are saying, is actually its Topgolf segment, which if you've ever been to a Topgolf, it is a blast. But the combined companies had about $2.7 billion of pro forma revenue and about $270 million in adjusted EBITDA last year. Now, of course, Topgolf actually was hurt by the pandemic with many of its locations forced to close. But by 2022, the company expects to generate about $3.2 billion in revenue and $360 million in EBITDA. So a very healthy rate of growth there. Plus, Topgolf is actually relatively small when you can think about it. It only has about 58 venues in the United States and 5 internationally. I was shocked to learn this because I've actually been to 3 of them. When you consider 3 of the 58, that's kind of wild. But management's expecting to grow to about 450 revenues by 2022. And what really makes Topgolf unique is it's actually sort of digitizing the game of golf, which I think typically you associate with, maybe an older generation. It's brought golf to so many new people, and say people like me that had never really golfed before. It's also sort of expanding its products, and now it offers top chaser technology, which allows any range to add this tracer technology that would be on a televised event, which is really cool. And it is also expanding its sort of VR capabilities. So Topgolfs are also getting smarter as technology gets smarter, which is pretty cool. So our first tweet today talks about Topgolf. That was sort of the hot word on social media today in terms of Callaway. People really, really love Topgolf on social media. So our first tweet says, it costs $18 million to start a Topgolf franchise, and the average location grosses $21.5 million a year. Total revenue in 2019 was $1.1 billion, growing at a compound annual growth rate of 30%. If this was an IPO or SPAC, FinTwit would have gone crazy over it. So I loved this because it just shows really the vast scale at which Topgolf is growing, even in spite of the fact that some of its locations, like I mentioned, were closed over the last year. Now, I'd mentioned Callaway was actually up 7% yesterday. Our next tweet sort of talks about that move. I mean, being up today, now it's up almost over 8% for the week, so it's had a fantastic week. Our next tweet says, Callaway looking great after some sympathy from golf earnings. Earnings on Monday, May 10th, #Topgolf. So golf was up about 14% following their strong first quarter earnings. And I would say these companies, although golf is down, I think over 1% today, these companies trade very similarly in tandem. And I would say that their first quarter earnings being so strong is a very, very good sign for Callaway going into their earnings Monday. And I have to say, I know more people that are talking about golf than ever before. I feel like it's sort of revived itself. And I actually think that's really cool because it's brought in so many new people to the game with so many courses now at full capacity. I would say that Callaway has a degree of stickiness because I don't see this necessarily going anywhere. Although we say this was a pandemic activity, I think there's a ton of people that have gotten either very good at golf or want to get better. And I think that is a trend that is here to stay, even as the economy reopens. I think so many people have sort of found a niche in golf, Kevin.
Jenny, golfers my age and above, like the age of your father, are still, traditional golfers, right? And young people can be too. My children are traditional golfers. But Topgolf has changed the way people look at golf. And Topgolf has made it more of an arcade game. And that has allowed golf to start to grow. It's a great place to learn how to hit a golf ball and practice your swing without any of the pressures of keeping score and things like that, although it's score in a different way. So I think, Callaway is a very popular golf club, right? They own Strata balls, they own Odyssey putters, they own those clubs. That's one part. But this Topgolf, that's a whole different animal. Because you're talking about the ability to grow, like you just mentioned. So you almost have to, divide the two companies. But Topgolf is a huge grower for this company, guys.
Well said. And it's certainly an interesting way as those who are fans of golf, like myself, like you, Kevin. We always want more players. The more players, the better. So any way to open up the game to the world, I think is exciting. But Jenny, great setup here for us. Always appreciate you. Have a great weekend, and thanks for joining us. So say goodbye to Jenny. I want to welcome in Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com. Andy, this one, earnings on Monday, interesting trends that you're monitoring. It's almost like you knew the key to Kevin and I's hearts here with this golf conversation on this Friday as well. But Callaway has been a mainstay in just golf equipment for a long time. They've got big names like Phil Mickelson, the international star John Rahm, the young gun here in the U.S., Xander Schauffele. So this is a name if you're familiar with the sport. But this is huge, this exposure with Topgolf to the new player. And that's one of the top trends that you're monitoring right now in regards to the game.
Yeah, one of the top trends we look at with golf is, not just the number of people playing it, but the number of people learning to play for the first time, because I think that's really a key. I know I speak for myself and pretty much everyone I know. It's like, as soon as you really commit to learning it, you get the bug, and people get addicted really quickly. They start buying all the technology and tools really quickly. And so it's a really key indicator. And, for the first time last year, in several years, we saw a significant increase in the number of people talking about learning how to golf. It was a sea change. And so even though it doesn't look dramatic on this chart, if you take what the trend was prior, it's a complete reversal of the trend. And then now, even as we get into a spring and summer where things are starting to open up, people have more options in terms of what they do than they did at this time last year. We're still plus 22% year over year in the number of people talking about learning to play golf. So I think that is a real indicator that this trend is here to stay. It's a multi-year trend, and people like the activity. They're into it. And from a Topgolf and Callaway perspective, I really think this is like, it's really turned out to be a genius move by Callaway to get into Topgolf. First of all, it diversifies what they do. If the economy changes, Topgolf is a little bit more of an affordable, on-demand option than being a member of a country club or something like that. But also, it taps them in, like you guys were talking about, into a completely new market. We looked at the stats from the National Golf Foundation. It's really cool. There's about 12 million people that said that they played golf just purely on a golf course last year, and that was an average age of 50, with 29% of them being female. But when you look at off-course golfers, again, about 12 million, so about the same number as purely on course, except for the demographic there was average age of 31 and 45% female. So it's completely opening up the game to a whole new element. And Callaway having a position in Topgolf, having the relationship that they have, and also having the products that they have, and celebrities and endorsements like you talk about, they're really set to capitalize on all aspects of golf becoming more popular. And I think it's a really cool story, the way this company has led the charge.
You know, think about what Andy just said. He basically described Topgolf as a date destination, right? Because younger people are going on dates to Topgolf. That's what that data tells me. You know, golf is a social game, right? And if you ask me my opinion, and I've told this to many people, 95% of people are not good at golf, right? There's only a small percentage that are really good. So that 95% makes it easier for people to go out and play. In full disclosure, I have been to a Topgolf with Andy Swan. And so we have done this experience together, and having drinks and having appetizers and standing there and hitting golf balls. It's a fun thing. And you know, there's going to be a day where golf is going to have to make the announcement that Topgolf saved what was the trend in golf, which was downward, right? I mean, courses were too expensive. It takes too long. There's a lot of things about golf that Topgolf has now re-energized in this. So, you know, Callaway to buy Topgolf. And, you know, when you looked at the comparisons on the purchase intent, you're like, why are we comparing Callaway to arcades and places? Well, that's why. It's Topgolf. And Andy, I'm very coachable, and I notice that what's good on your purchase intent? Top and to the right? Well, look where Callaway Golf is now, purely probably because of Topgolf.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, you know, it's one of those situations where this has emerged as one of those, you know, pandemic-inspired activities that people actually liked, and it actually changed people's long-term behavior. And so I think that Callaway's really set to benefit long-term. I think that the stock's done well. You know, we'll see what happens with earnings. But from a generational standpoint, I think is the topic of the show today is that there is a change generationally, and it's for the first time in a long time since Tiger Woods' peak, I think, or since Tiger Woods, you know, was really, really roaring. Since then, I think this is the first time that you can say it's actually likely that young people are going to pick up this game. And it's through Topgolf, it's through the accessibility, it's through some of the fun players that are on tour that are a little more, you know, Andre Agassi type of players. You know, they're a little more exciting to watch. They hit the ball really hard, and they seem to be having fun playing rather than, you know, calculating every single move that they make. And I think that makes it more enjoyable as well. So Callaway's in a really good spot to benefit from the growth of the game. And it's a good story to have on a Friday. It may be why the markets got stuck where they were. It's Friday in May, and there might be a few traders out there hitting the links right now.
Andy, it's always been a great game because it's friendly to the beginner. You can still have fun even if you're not very good. I think that was the point Kevin was making when he was talking about the percentage of players who aren't great golfers. But what technology has done and what things like Topgolf has done is it even lowered that barrier to entry to an even lower bar, to where you can literally pick up the club for the first time at a Topgolf, which I'm sure will be now Callaway equipment, and probably still enjoy yourself, even if you're only hitting it 2, 3, 4 times, enjoying some drinks, getting some food, and more exposure to the game. Next thing you know, you buy a set of Callaway clubs because that's what you know, and you're playing real golf. So I think it's a really interesting kind of vertical integration they've set themselves up with. And as you talk about, it's not going to just be Nike Golf benefiting from Tiger Woods' explosion now. It's the entire industry when you look at some of these things. But final thing here, Andy, as we say goodbye, I'm guessing from all of this, you're pretty excited about earnings coming on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, I don't see why Callaway would have anything negative to say in terms of outlook. If they do, then something's very wrong, because the tailwinds behind them could not be stronger.
Good stuff. Andy Swan, it is always a pleasure. We'll let you go. You have a great weekend. Maybe Andy's hitting the golf links as well, so we'll let him get out of here. Thanks, as always, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com.